Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr and also with Kevin Noon. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, please. It may be the off season, but there's no time to wait. There's a lot of stuff to talk about today involving Ohio State, involving Ohio State's favorite program up in the state north of Ohio. Going to be an interesting few weeks for I think a couple Big Ten programs, and as we sort of shake out the transfer portal, the transfer to the NFL portal, the NCAA transfer to prison portal, it's going to be quite a fascinating few weeks.
Before we get to that, Kevin, how are you doing?
Doing well. Casual Friday over here. I fought the Razor and the Razor won. So, it's interesting times right now, just with everything that's going on. Ohio State played a pair of number one teams and lost by a grand total of 3 points between those two games combined. So, when titling the show, I'm like, I don't know what the heck to name this show. I guess it's just been kind of a weird week. And then people noticing what's going on up north and the portal and NIL and potential coaching movement. Steve Spurrier Jr. joining Kevin Wilson down at Tulsa reportedly. So Kevin Wilson assembling his staff. Lots to watch.
Now, you both have mentioned something going on at Michigan. Now, on Twitter, I only follow Michigan accounts and I have seen nothing. So I don't know what you guys are referring to. Tom, if you could please explain, because I am in the dark here.
Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. That you never know quite how seriously to take something. How big of a concern is this? Is this people blowing something out of proportion? Is it a bigger deal than you think? Is it what is it? Dan Wetzel of Yahoo had a report, and this is reported a couple different places. Sources: Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, under NCAA investigation for potential rules violations. Now, the rules violations, for the most part, were a bunch of level 2 allegations, which is more minor stuff. And, that's, I don't even remember what the specific level 2 violations are, because that's one of those things that I stop reading when I see level 2 violations, because that's one of those straight up like, no one cur. But, Tony, there is a potential level 1 violation, and that is a more significant one. And that is that Jim Harbaugh was perhaps not as forthright as he might have been with NCAA investigators about those level 2 violations. Now, as a couple former presidents have learned over the years, one Richard Milhouse Nixon, one James Patrick Tressel, one president of the United States, one president of Youngstown State University. It's not the crime, Tony, it's the cover-up. And so it is interesting to see James, whatever his middle name is, Harbaugh, Milhouse, yes, potentially failing to have learned from that lesson. Adam Rittenberg from ESPN said, this is a fairly serious thing. Could involve like multi-game suspensions, which, as you may recall, that was sort of bandied about with James Patrick Tressel back in the day. But, to your point, boy, there was only one person who I saw nationally saying, "Oh, these are relatively minor things." It was the same person who was busy telling you what a great job the Big Ten was doing and parlaying that into a Big Ten network, appearance and job, essentially Big Ten network contributorship position. And you check the big Michigan blogs, and boy, there sure isn't a whole lot out there, because I don't think they're able to tell you that this is nothing. So feels like this might be something.
Kevin, what's that old saying? Lie small, like this, lie big. Basically, if you're the kind of person that has to tell small lies, then you'll lie about anything.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that old saying. I know, wash, rinse, repeat. That's about the only saying I know. But
TTL.
Yeah, I think the initial violations, the level 2s, had to deal with contact with recruits during a dead period or something of that nature, which in of itself, okay, is something, but nothing huge. But don't, we know that it's it's the cover up that is the damning thing, and I don't know when the NC2A ever decided to grow any fangs. I mean, right now I still think that they're just gumming at their meat, but the fact that this is
Are we not doing phrasing anymore?
what? No, we're not doing phrasing anymore. You're not my supervisor. Um, it's interesting that this is now coming out as this level 1 for being deceptive or outright lying to investigators, since we've it's so eerily similar to other things that we've seen in the past at other places. And I'm not necessarily talking about the situation of Jim Tressel and what was going on at Ohio State, but with Jim Harbaugh trying to strong arm Michigan right now into more money and more protection, he certainly is not negotiating from a position of power with this level 1 allegation hanging over his head. And you have to wonder if Jim Harbaugh is going to sit there and say, "All right, this just isn't worth it. Hello, Carolina. Hello, Indianapolis. I'm just gonna get the hell out of Dodge."
I will say, and I tweeted this last night, the level 1 thing of lying or failing to cooperate, that's just talking to Jim Harbaugh. That's every conversation with Jim Harbaugh. It just feels like he's failing to cooperate, but that's just how he operates. That's how the interactions are. So to my point on Twitter, I think it was just the NCAA was like, this just didn't feel like a back and forth. Let's just go ahead and throw some failure to cooperate on him. Meanwhile, that's just how he talks. That's just how he interacts. It's just how he is. So we'll see what happens. I imagine, again, I have seen nothing on the Michigan sphere of this, so I assume it is completely nothing. And anyway, the NCAA is corrupt, as we know. Why should you have to follow the rules of a corrupt organization? And if you're gonna lie, at least lie to the NCAA, because nobody respects them. That's mainly the gist I'm getting from some of the Michigan people. So
what I think is going to be an interesting thing to track is whether if there is some substance to this, whether this simply represents one man's failing or a simple misunderstanding, or whether this is a damning indictment of the entire culture of the program and represents why they are everything that is wrong with college football. Because we've certainly seen things go the second way, that latter way there, where this type of thing just this online classes. Where will it end, Tony? It never ends. It is just a highway to hell, and it starts with this type of thing with failure to cooperate. Now, it will be interesting to see whether that remains the case in this instance, or if this is merely one man's failing, or perhaps some kind of innocent miscommunication. Because I mean, I know where the bar has been set in the past, but hey, Tony, sometimes bars move. That happened. I mean, it happened to Mama's Pasta and Brew. It might happen here.
Well, and sometimes coaches should know everything that goes on. Sometimes, it's too much to ask for them to know everything. Unless, of course, the coach is the one that is being deceptive. Then obviously he knows. So I can't imagine he's going to be suspended, because that almost never happens. But it will be interesting to see if that does happen in this case. And if you are going to suspend him, it's not like they need him for the non-conference season next year, when it's East Carolina, Joe Smith, and
hang on,
Chaminade.
Hang on, let me look up the Indianapolis Colts non-conference season.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
yeah. The NC2A is so mad at Michigan that they are going to bomb Grand Valley State back into the Stone Ages.
Still, Grand Valley State better than Michigan State, I bet. Can you tone the cat down, please, Kevin?
I know. I don't know. I got accused of launching the cat last time, so I'm going to walk this one out of the room and close the door.
It's because you did launch the cat.
Fight.
Yes, the Indianapolis Colts non-conference schedule includes the road games against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now I've got to really remember what division the Colts are in. I'm going to do my very best. At Cincinnati, at Atlanta, at Baltimore, at Carolina.
Do you think his brother gives him a pass?
home for the Browns, home for the Steelers, home for the Saints, and home for the Buccaneers. So, I mean,
let's remember, Robert Irsay made Jim Tressel sit out the games he was suspended for when he came to Indianapolis to be like their video instant replay guy or whatever. Like he had to sit out like 5 games that season as well. So will Robert Irsay, if Jim Tressel or if Jim Harbaugh is suspended and then goes to the Colts, will he make him sit out those games? The precedent is there. I bet, however, he won't.
Well, that's why he should leave now. And then,
Before the suspension.
if he gets named and gets some sort of punishment after the fact, it's like, I wasn't there to defend myself. I mean, and let's remember, Jim Harbaugh isn't deceptive. He's just weird. I mean, he probably was trying to be helpful, but he just couldn't communicate because he's such a weirdo.
I think there's legitimacy to that because, again, he's not the best communicator at all.
Question from Dave Rice that I'm throwing in really quick, not there, but you guys had the opportunity to go to Bucky's. Dave Rice wants to know if Bucky's has ketchup brisket.
No, they had barbecue sauce on their brisket. I did have a brisket sandwich. It was fine. It was good. I mean, it was like $6 or $8, which was much more expensive than my $5 burrito the first day. That was also pretty good, but it's an experience. It's something you don't really want to. I mean, it was chaotic. So if you're not a fan of like crowded spaces or Disney World, maybe go during what's non-peak time of year for Bucky's. I don't know, because we were there for Christmas and New Year's. I was there for Christmas and New Year's, and the place was packed. But it's an experience. Just know that there's a lot of people there. Some people know what they're doing. Other people don't. So it doesn't matter if you are one or the other. You'll figure it out, and people will just move around you. It's this ever-growing organism. It was fine. It was good. I'm glad I went. I will be back.
Yeah, that was my first time at a Bucky's as well. And it was very good. I had a burrito, just got like a breakfast burrito kind of thing. That was very good. You figure it out pretty quickly. It's basically like any other gas station, just like 7 times as many 7 times as much space, 12 times as many people there. But it was very good. I got some of the Kevin's favorite, the beaver nuggets, brought those home. I figured out, Kevin, I don't know if you figured out what those are. Those are Captain Crunch. That's basically just a puffed corn that tastes like Captain Crunch. It was like, why does Noon like these? Oh, I get it. It's Captain Crunch. Okay.
I'm sure did the family get any of the beaver nuggets, or did you keep those in a secret stash?
No, yeah, I brought them all home. I did not open them. I knew what was going to happen if I opened them in the car, so I waited until I brought them home. I got regular, and I got the salted sea salt caramel ones as well. We have not opened those yet. We're just doing one bag at a time. So, but they're very, very good.
And Ryan here in the comments is right. I am ready to fight. It's not like every gas station. It's Bucky's. It's better.
Let me finish my sentence. It's like every gas. It's like every gas station, except it's like if a gas station and a Walmart had a baby, but then they had but then that baby grew up to be something good and not a Walmart or a gas station.
To me, it kind of reminded me like a speedway, but a speedway where a person could drop off the baby if the fire department was closed. It's that kind of place.
Glasswing butterfly, no actual beavers were harmed in the making of these nuggets. There are good nuggets and there are bad nuggets, and beaver nuggets are among the finest nuggets out there.
Chicken nuggets still tops. I want to address this El Suzabo thing from earlier. Morning, guys. You've got to address the rumors of one of our big players being poached by USC with Joel Klatt and Josh Pate suggesting some smoke here. It makes me concerned. I don't know what Josh Pate and Joel Klatt have said recently. I think this all started from a Barstool account tweeting like 4 emojis indicating I think it was a Buckeye, and then the running emoji with the dollar bag emoji, and then the deuces emoji to indicating that an Ohio State player is going to USC. And then it has blown up since then. And everybody's just trying to attach names to it. And so now I think it's up to like 14 different players going to USC from Ohio State. And I don't know how USC can afford all of this.
I'm going to USC.
but I don't. I think we would all say don't expect it to be Marvin Harrison, and really, I don't know if it's any of these guys. Um, this is just going to be the way of the world now. It's just going to be all rumors. And the thing is, you could throw rumors up and then just say, well, Ohio State paid more, or like whoever paid more. Like it was looking this way, but then somebody came in at the last minute and saved the day. So I don't know what's going on there. I know Marvin Harrison has said repeatedly he's not going anywhere, and that he's not interested in that. So I think that was the initial concern, just because USC goes and gets other teams' receivers because they haven't been able to recruit anybody until I think this year. But don't expect it there. And then of course you attach every other West Coast player to a West Coast Buckeye to it, and we've got 12 more days of this with the portal open. So I don't know of anybody leaving at this point. I'm not going to ever be surprised, I don't think, if somebody does. But from everything Marvin Harrison has said, it's not him.
Yeah, I mean, we have a long-standing policy that we don't speculate on guys going into the portal, and we don't put people in the portal. I mean, there's a name that jumps immediately to mind, and you've heard rumors around, a number of players, and we have privately had conversations about like who do we need to have pre-written because we anticipate that they could leave. That's not conversations that we have publicly. Yet there is a name that sort of jumps to mind, but it's not Marvin Harrison. I don't think it's Emeka Egbuka. I mean, I think we'll see. But as Tony said, I think at this point, anyone can tweet out anything and have it be, oh look, I'm hearing that a Texas, well-known Texas player is looking at transferring. Like, okay, that's probably true. I'm hearing that a well-known Michigan player is thinking of transferring. Yeah, that's probably true. I'm hearing that a well-known New Mexico State player is thinking of transferring. I mean, if there is a well-known New Mexico State player, that's probably true. Like that is what college football is right now. So I think this is one of these things where like you can follow along, but I would just not stress about it because like it's going to happen. So this is resolve in 2023 to spend your energy on the things that you can control, like circle of influence versus circle of control, that old thing. Resolve to spend 2023 worrying about the things you can control and not the things that are out of your control, where you'll just sit there and worry about whether a college football player is going somewhere. Like that is not a good use of your time or energy. A good use of your time or energy is sitting here listening to us talk about gas stations.
Well, and the thing is, all right, some Ohio State player is going to transfer. And then when somebody transfers, it's like, look, see, I was right. Right. You sit there and your spray pattern is wide enough. You're going to eventually hit with something. So last night on Buckeye Huddle, no more phrasing. Last night, there were the comments of people was like, oh, Marvin Harrison. I'm like, I talked to a lot of people when we were in Atlanta about the Marvin Harrison situation. And Marvin really is one of the players who's not embraced NIL. And Marvin is a player that comes from a little bit of money. If nobody's going to be able to pay Marvin more money than his family at this point. Marvin needs money, he doesn't need to go out and go to Joe's Carpet Shack and do a commercial for them. Dad, I need some money. And, and hell, he can get mom's money. Mom is a doctor and like a physical therapist, trainer or something. I mean, we're talking a very successful family that he comes from. So if why is he going to USC to go play with Caleb Williams? Because he hasn't been around a talented quarterback. Oh, well, we don't know what Ohio State has. Well, we didn't know what Ohio State had before CJ Stroud got out there. I think I'm willing to bet that Ohio State will be just fine in terms of having a very receiver-friendly offense with a quarterback who's going to be able to distribute the ball and a program that's going to be on TV plenty. Hell, go to the Pac-12 because they're still Pac-12 until 24 and try to find them on TV. Half their games are on after dark, and the other half of the games, who cares?
Well, maybe he wants to play in the fourth quarter of games, and you can do that at USC because you have to score 60 points to win 62-57. So But no, I don't expect him going anywhere. He doesn't have time for the NIL stuff. He's too busy in the whack on the jugs gun, just constantly catching passes, basically. Well, and this from El Suzamo. Colin Cowherd also said yesterday that a major wide receiver, a Biletnikoff finalist, is leaving one of the college football playoff teams in the portal. Also, he also added gas to the fire. He said this a few weeks back, and then USC landed somebody, and then everybody thought that was it. I don't know. I don't know how many players that narrows it down to. Is Marvin Harrison the only one? The only Biletnikoff finalist who was part of the college football playoffs, who is coming back, one of their 3 finalists, and Jalen Hyatt is, I assume, going to the NFL, and he was also not in the college football playoffs. At this point, why not just name the name? Because you have narrowed the possibilities so small that there's only one of those. And I would also say that Colin Cowherd is not the best source on college football happenings around the nation.
Well, I think he's sort of in the Dan Patrick bucket. Do you remember Dan Patrick during the COVID season? Dan Patrick would constantly have these scoops and everyone would run with them and it would be this huge deal and then none of them would actually happen. Colin Cowherd is also the one who said that the Denver Broncos offered Jim Harbaugh $20 million or whatever it was, or more than $20 million a year, which is like double what every other NFL coach is getting paid, more or less. And I mean, do you really think he's got a contract offer on the table? And if he does have a $20 million contract offer on the table, do you think he's really passing that up? Like, it doesn't. That was one of those things that just sort of sounded like, yeah, you just kind of heard it. You heard it from one person, and your whole business model is based on saying kind of outrageous stuff for attention. And, I mean, you've seen that on the local level. You've seen that on the national level. And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, something changed. It didn't happen. Oh, I mean, that's just kind of, it's basically the here's that attention you ordered gif. Like that's essentially it with a lot of that. And so I think you have to consider the source on all that stuff. And it's like, I'm sure he knows people, but also his filter for what is reportable and isn't is probably not quite as, there's a lot that can slip through that filter, I think. So I would not necessarily read that and immediately freak out either.
And SC already got a transfer portal receiver so far, Dorian Singer from Arizona, 66 catches, 1,105 yards, 6 touchdowns. And not saying that, oh, well, that means that they certainly wouldn't welcome Marvin Harrison Jr. if that situation, came to pass and we were all proven wrong. But, there are a lot of questions out there about, how the Jordan Addison situation came to be from 2022, the success or lack thereof of Jordan Addison's situation in 2022, whether or not the reported dollars were accurate, and if Jordan Addison actually made the money that he was supposed to make out there. There's just a lot of stuff out there, and I think everybody sees SC as being this portal monster as they were in 2022, the way that Texas A&M was this NIL monster. Obviously USC had plenty of success by getting as far as they did, but if I'm USC, there's a finite amount of dollars. Spend it on defense. Spend it on defense, baby. That's what you need. That's what kept you out of the playoff is your defense.
Well, and yeah, that would be a fantastic idea because they are improving the offensive skill constantly, but defensively, they're just, well, maybe you do the addition by subtraction. Maybe you tell Alex Grinch, look, Alex, I know we're holding you back here. I feel like we need to let you go fly and really let you blossom because here we're just holding you back. And maybe once you leave the nest, then you can become the peacock that you need to be, and then USC can actually get better by letting him go. Now, go ahead, Tom.
We know Alex Grinch doesn't like to hold anything back, so that really would not be his thing at all.
It's not unable to. They can't hold anything back.
I do think Jordan Addison didn't really help himself by going to USC. Now, had he stayed at Pitt, that was probably going to be messy as well. So he didn't improve his stock by going. He just was able to keep himself from losing stock by staying at Pitt. And he certainly could have helped his stock going somewhere else other than USC had he chosen the right place. Real quick before we get back on this, Purgatory Buck, any update on Zed Key? Chris Holtman did not have an update after the game. We are talking to, actually right now there should be, I think Jake Diebler is talking to the media, so there probably may be something coming out later today or maybe not. You just never know with Ohio State and medical issues.
Yeah, it didn't. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. Who else could the Buckeyes get in the portal? Any more crazy rumors you guys could lay to rest? I mean, it certainly seems like the next thing that they're looking at in the portal is an offensive lineman. They have they've been in on the left tackle from Washington State. They've been in on the guy from Towson, who was a freshman last year, who was a freshman All-American at the FCS level. So I think those are the two names.
Walter Rouse at Stanford as well.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the position where I would expect the next target to potentially come. I mean, there's been talk about them trying to get some depth at the quarterback position or the tight end position. But, I mean, that I think if you're asking me to lay money on where they're looking next, I would say offensive line.
Yeah, that's where they need it. And if they could get Rouse or Jarrett Kingston, I think that would be a home run for them because then it would solidify some things. If they don't get a left tackle, now you're moving guys around and hoping things work out for the best. Like other spots, TJ Finley tweeted that he was in town in Columbus, the former quarterback of LSU, current or former quarterback at Auburn.
Yep.
A big 6'7" guy can run around, has struggled and has not been able to keep a job, but they're not looking for a starter in the portal. They would just be looking for somebody who is okay being a backup. I don't know if that is TJ Finley. I don't
imagine him on fourth down and goal line.
Yeah, well, I picture him. TJ Finley, if you're not familiar, is a very big dude who's not the most accurate passer. And like I look at him and I'm like, they could have their own version of the Belldozer package. Bring in that Blake Bell fourth down. Like you don't want to run. You don't want to run Kyle McCord or you don't want to run Devin Brown in short yardage. You bring in the TJ Finley package. The other possibility is you're looking at him as maybe a tight end or something like that. That's a possibility as well. But yeah, there are just a select handful of positions where they're looking at guys, and that's those are the ones we're kind of talking about there. Dave Rice wants to know when is the portal deadline? It is January 19th. You have to be, if you are not a grad transfer, you have to be in the portal by January 19th. And then if not, you can't enter the portal for a little while. And then there's another window that opens up after spring ball. And it was March 15th to May 31st or, something like that, where it's basically you have the postseason movement and then you have the post-spring movement. And those are the times when underclassmen can enter the portal right now.
Yeah, it's a 15-day period in spring after the spring, but huge news from the super chat from Jordan Kapler here. I am blown away. I really hope Tom doesn't transfer out of Buckeye Huddle. Kevin, on the other hand, that's right. Kevin is my new enemy for the year.
That is the last comment I'm ever punching through from Jordan Kapler until this enemy status is rectified.
Tom, looks like you're going to have to take over producing a lot of the shows.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. That's
just as long. Yeah.
I've done this for years. It'll be fine. You won't even notice he's not here.
That was the mistake I made teaching Tom how to use this platform. That's why I always joked with people. I would be like, I taught them everything they know. I never teach them everything I know. That makes you replaceable.
That also keeps you off of many, many lists. But Jordan, thank you for that. I am going to miss the back and forth that you and Tom have. Is there any way that you could also still be enemies with Tom? If you can find it in your heart to be hateful and dismissive, so that it's not just me and Kevin up here doing that. If the more we can have, the merrier. This one from Dub the Boss. Any news on Cormani McLean wearing a Buckeye hat? Kevin, you saw this. Was this just an instance of him being given a hat and him putting it on? Like,
Yes, absolutely. I saw it posted by one of the South Florida Express guys who, not one of the players, but like one of the support guys, and handed them a hat. And Cormani played it off pretty well, but there's no real smoke to it unless something is bubbling so far beneath the surface that nobody is aware. But it made for an engagement grenade, and it's a lot of fun to talk about, but there's nothing there.
Sorry, dealing with an unrelated
Come on,
issue.
producer Tom.
Jordan, help me. Is Tony frozen?
No, he's just smug.
I think he's frozen.
All right. Well, here, I'll throw up another question while
Tony's frozen. Yeah, and here's the thing on players wearing hats, players wearing gloves, whatever. Like, sometimes guys just want to create drama in their recruitments. That's a thing that guys will do. That's a very easy thing. Like, you want to get a fan base stirred up, perhaps pick up some Instagram followers or whatever. You put on another team's hat, and then ta-da, everyone freaks out. And I have not heard anything to indicate that Ohio State and Cormani McLean are, rebuilding a relationship there. So no, I would not read anything into that.
Tony will be joining us in a minute. He just got a blue screen of death, so he has to take a shot of penicillin, and he'll be right back.
Sounds like someone needs to buy a Mac and be a grown-up. Weird. RK says, any fire to the smoke that Laurinaitis is coming to OSU? I mean, they don't have an open linebacker coaching spot right now. That quite the Coy McFarland, which is the assistant, kind of the assistant linebackers coach. He was someone who came from Oklahoma State with Knowles, and he just left to get another job. I have not heard anything about Laurinaitis other than just sort of the speculation. It's possible, but I think he had reached out to them a year ago, and it didn't seem like they felt that was a good fit at the time. Maybe now that he's spent a year at Notre Dame, maybe that's a possibility. But
Bo Bishop mentioned it on radio as something that could be, potential thing out there or whatever. And I think that's where the genesis of this came from, was Bo Bishop. And for those who don't know, Bo certainly is friendly with the Laurinaitis family. So, it could be a little bit of a trial balloon to see what's out there. But, it makes sense without, with Coy McFarland moving on to Tulsa with Kevin Wilson's staff, for them to look to replace that spot. I mean, certainly it gives you somebody who is well-known, and there are questions out there about the recruiting of Jim Knowles. I mean, Jim Knowles is an old DC. He is not necessarily this guy that is going out there and just wowing recruits in terms of, with personality and, hey kid, you want some coffee? I mean, I'm assuming that's Jim Knowles' pitch. And, we can go in, and Ohio State was very much in the mix for Tackett Curtis, a linebacker out of Louisiana. He ended up going to USC. Ohio State got really close with Troy Bowles. weren't able to close there either. It certainly wouldn't hurt having Laurinaitis on your staff in advance of, and I know we've talked about it for a while now, and we're not there yet, the expansion of your coaching staffs. Because if you could put James Laurinaitis out there on the recruiting trail, that wouldn't hurt. That certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, and the Ohio State staff last year had a couple guys who were, and this is kind of every coaching staff, you've got a few, super recruiters, you've got some guys who are kind of okay on the trail, and you've got the guys who are really kind of non-factors on the trail. It's like Urban Meyer's old 10%, 80%, 10% thing, where like 10% of guys are incredible, 80% of guys are just kind of in the middle, and you've got the 10% who are kind of the bottom 10. James Laurinaitis is probably at least in the middle 80, if not the top 10. And, you would have to, you never know until you get someone out on the trail. But, they had guys who are They had guys who are, were not really factors on the recruiting trail last year. And, if you can upgrade some of those, that's probably not a bad thing.
Welcome back, Tony. Maybe. You're.
Am I all right? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. The picture is blurry and a little glitchy. It looks like you're like on a 240 resolution like video phone from the Tomorrowland at Disneyland from 1975. But we'll see how this rides, and if you have to depart again to get this to run to the Mac store and go get a real big boy computer, then we'll wait for you. As your dial-up modem is acting up again.
I was thinking that, is it finally time to become a clone, become a sheep, and do what the sheep do, and buy a MacBook? I will say
have a computer that works
for under $666,000. The Laurinaitis thing, I think him going to Notre Dame and getting some experience is kind of what Ohio State wanted. And if he wants to come back, there's clearly a spot available now with the linebacker GA spot being open. And also once the limit on assistant coaches goes away, like you could go from GA to full-fledged assistant like immediately in the next year or so. So, I think if he wants to come back home and Ohio State would be willing to have him, I think that's a home run. In terms of, I don't think any high school players know who he is, though, as a football player or an Ohio State football player. Like, it's going to be a rare subset of people who are like, who know anymore. I mean, James Laurinaitis was a freshman in 2005. He was a senior in 2008. It was a long time ago. Kids were like in preschool. So we'll see what he can do as a recruiter, though. I think he would be pretty good.
LSU Zabo, Andrew Anthony just picked up a Penn State offer. The former Michigan receiver, he picked up a Michigan State offer last night. Michigan Monday, Tony, what do you think about Andrew Anthony in the portal, and how funny would it be if he ended up at Michigan State? And I'm not saying that's where he's going to end up. Hamasiro saying that he thinks that ND would be interested in Andrell as well, but you had a chance to watch him. What are your thoughts there as we kind of widen the focus?
I mean, he's fast, but I think he's just a guy. Now maybe he becomes something more with more than 12 targets a year because he's spent 2 years at Michigan and probably has about 25 targets in his career. He has potential. He has speed. Sometimes fights the football, isn't consistent, but I don't think any receivers can really get consistent at Michigan when they only get a handful of targets. And he was maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th guy. So he's probably going to be passed by the recruiting class that they brought in 2022, the current freshman. And I'm sure at this point you're looking for more. And this is going to be, you're going into your 3rd year. It's could be a contract year. So go somewhere that needs you. I don't know that Michigan needs him. Now they may, depending on what they lose this year. But, I would see if he wants to stay in state or he wants to go to Penn State, I think they're definitely going to be options for him clearly. No, Tom, you saw him. He would show up every 4 games, 5 games, and it was never really somebody that you had to be concerned about. And so I don't see this as a loss because they didn't use him enough.
Right. It's not something where, it could be a something where they regret it later. But right now, based on his productivity at Michigan, it's kind of it's almost a guy who didn't get playing time and didn't get balls thrown his way. So therefore he left. He's someone who you saw him do stuff often enough that it's like, why don't they use him more? And the fact that they just never used him more. And it was not like they had this incredible group of wide receivers last year. So it was just kind of always one of those, like, it's weird that he doesn't do more, but he had the one big game against Michigan State last year and then just kind of never did a whole lot. You would see him get like exactly 1 pass thrown to him per game this year. And sometimes he caught it and sometimes he dropped it. And then that was it. I saw someone, Hamasiro said he thought ND might be interested in Andrew Anthony. He reported an offer from Notre Dame yesterday. So yes, they are in fact very interested in Andrew Anthony.
How about Wisconsin? As Luke Fickell tries to take that offense from the 19-aughts to the at least the 20-aughts, they're going to need some receivers because the last receiver I could name there is Danny Davis. I think before that is like Jared Abbrederis. I mean, they're going to need to do a full cleansing of that offense.
Yeah, that does feel like a spot where you're going to want receivers. I have no idea if he'll be a fit for what they want to do, what Phil Longo's looking to do at Wisconsin. But yes, that is a spot where just as they're not quite transitioning. It's not like the post Paul Johnson Georgia Tech transition where it's like now we need an entirely different offense. But you're going to need a lot more skill guys and a lot more wide receivers for what they're going to want to do there. So yeah. I think any wide receiver is sort of on the board for Wisconsin this offseason as a potential upgrade.
This from Dave Rice. Any interest by Lorenzo Styles Jr. coming back to Ohio State to play defensive back? I know that rumor was out there at one time. That rumor was out there at one time. Seems to have died down and not really picked up in the last couple of weeks. And now that it's getting down to crunch time, I have not seen that pick back up. Perhaps it does in the spring, but there's been nothing there that I know of.
Yeah, we actually talked about this as we were eating our press meal before the basketball game. I was like, remember when all that Lorenzo Styles Jr. talk was out there? It's like I haven't heard anything in a while. So it's funny that Dave Rice mentions this. He must be spying on us. He must have been that guy that was sitting next to us that we didn't know who it was. So Dave, if that was you, identify yourself next time, please. But
that's the scary part about having conversations in public about stuff we can't talk about in public. And there are like people behind you. Are they listening? Do they know what you're talking about? And then boom, that's how something gets spread because Kevin or somebody else was uncareful. Me, of course, being super careful. I only write things down and I write it down and then I show it to them and have them read it because I refuse to speak in public.
Yeah, and then you write it on that flash paper that you light it and it goes and it just burns up, right?
Got to be safe.
One more thing from Dave Rice. Yeah. He's the one hacking Tony's computer. Please.
Am I okay now? Is it better?
Put it out of its misery once and for all.
I got the blue screen and it was like, once it starts happening like once a week, then there might be issues. But am I okay now? Can you hear me now? Can you see me now?
We can hear you, which is the important thing.
Really? Gosh darn.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're using both pixels very well right now as far as the video goes, but
how many fingers am I holding up?
You got I'm gonna ones and zeros.
I'm gonna guess one, and I'm gonna guess which one it is.
Brad Smith talking about Michigan and the Mozzie Smith situation. Allowed a kid to bring 69 bullets and an unregistered gun on campus with no penalty. Hid it until the OSU game. Then had the DA delay charges. Then sentencing was set for December 28th. Got delayed until January 11th, which would have been more than enough time to play in a national championship game on January 9th. But obviously TCU was able to end that season. So, not to belabor the Michigan point, but the stuff is going on everywhere. I mean, things are happening everywhere. I mean, they're on the other side of things. Michigan State, one of the guys that had a felony from the tunnel fight, just had the felony charges dropped as he pled down to something else. Crump, I think, was his last name. So, just wait till we get into the silly season and we get into the summer and police blotter season.
Fulmer Cup season, the legendary Fulmer Cup. I think with the Mozzie Smith thing, it's like, the look is not very good. To me, the thing that was more than the actual crime, to me, the thing that was more the is the shoe on the other foot thing here. The shoe on the other foot thing with Harbaugh being accused of misleading the NCAA. The shoe on the other foot thing with all the stuff Kevin just laid out. And, boy, if this was another program, if this was at Michigan State, if this was at Penn State, if this was at whatever, fill in the blank program you want to fill in there, what would the perception of this be, from the Michigan, fan base and blog community and whatever, which has always tended to be on the far, far, far right end of the sanctimony scale. I don't know that there would necessarily have been the same understanding and nuance and grace shown, given you have to understand the circumstances around this. Like this feels like something that would have gotten thrown on the heap with online classes and Terrell Pryor's car and whatever else, and then becomes just another part of the narrative. Which this is different though because reasons.
Well, and just the entire corruption of Columbus as a whole and the legal system protecting the football players. I imagine delaying or hiding or whatever charges or whatever, or a court case or that doesn't happen. That would never happen at Michigan until it did. But then again, from what I've seen from the people I follow that are of Michigan fans, another nothing burger. That's all it is. So don't get it all soaked up in it. It's no big deal. But again, if this is somebody else, heads would need to roll.
Yeah, it's when your head coach is winning and has the program doing stuff they haven't done in 20 years, it's this stuff gets a little more forgivable. And that's the kind of thing that gets branded at win at all costs when it's someone else's program, but when it's your program, it's like, well, you have to understand. There's just, the NCAA, this stuff he's accused of misleading the NCAA about or being not uncooperative for the NCAA. It's not even a big deal. So really, if that's not a big deal, why would this be a big deal?
And who is the NCAA anyway to think they should be cooperated with? Talking about the upcoming national championship game from JJ, it's difficult for me to see TCU pulling it off. Typically, higher talented teams match up well, and they out-talent the lesser sometimes in dominant fashion. I am not taking TCU in this one. I don't feel comfortable laying the 13.5 points or whatever it is at this point either. That's a lot. TCU is a team that doesn't quit and they just keep fighting, and they've got a quarterback that will keep fighting. But at some point, this almost feels like Jon Snow getting ready to take on the entire, the Battle of the Bastards, just won against the entire Ramsey Bolton army, and with not enough backup. So I eventually think Georgia just kind of overwhelms them defensively and offensively. But is anybody outside of Georgia rooting against TCU in this one, other than the bettors?
Well, I was going to say, I think that we know that in the SEC, as long as the SEC wins the title, everybody shares in the victory. So I think that you could certainly say a lot of SEC fans are probably going to be pulling for the conference because it just means more. But outside of that, I don't really think so. There may be the one person out there's like, but if Georgia wins, that makes Ohio State's loss look better. They lost to the national champions. I don't know. I don't think you need to do any massaging of the Peach Bowl game. It is what it is. It would be interesting to see, how the nation accepts a TCU win if TCU is able to pull it off. I know I wasn't buying for a lot of the season. Max Duggan wasn't even the starter just to begin the year. Comes in. There are multiple games they should have dropped along the way. I just kept waiting for the other shoe to drop in the Fiesta Bowl against Michigan. But Michigan was like, no, please, here, take it. Mm-hmm. Take the win. So, I don't know. We now have legal betting here in Ohio, have a bunch of free bets. I'm very scared. This is one of these things that TCU could win it by 4 or UGA could win it by 40. I don't have a good read.
Yeah, you wonder if TCU shot all of their bullets against Michigan to get through Michigan, and we had talked about this. If Ohio State and Michigan were playing in the semifinal, and whoever won that one, if that was such a war that you move on to the championship game and you kind of got nothing left. That was kind of what happened to Ohio State in 2020 against Alabama. I tend to think that the talent is going to win out with Georgia, and that as long as Michigan was very mistake prone in that game. And I have not gotten a chance to go back and rewatch it. I just watched it, live. But, Michigan was very mistake prone in that game. And, if Georgia doesn't do that, I think that's going to, Georgia's defense is also probably better than Michigan's defense. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And, at some point, talent wins out. And it feels like, Georgia's coming into the playoff. I think a lot of people felt that Ohio State was the team that had the talent to match up with Georgia in a way that no one else did. And that's not saying Ohio State's a better team than Michigan. That's just saying that Ohio State, just in terms of pure talent, if they play their best game, has the best chance to beat Michigan. Did we see TCU's best game, and is TCU's best game good enough to beat Georgia? And I don't know that it is.
But we also know Georgia turns the ball over freely. They will give up. They will play down to the level of their opponent. But do they play up to the level of the situation or down to the level of the opponent? And I don't know that we know that. I think that's
Darnell Washington. Does Georgia have a couple of its outside linebackers that went down during the game? I would assume that the outside linebackers, I don't think either of those look serious, but Darnell Washington was knocked out for the game.
Yeah, and losing, they're already down outside linebackers. Nolan Smith has been out for a while, so you get into that depth and things can happen. You lose Darnell Washington, you lose the ability. Their screen game takes a big hit because they don't have that extra blocker there, and he's mobile. He can get wherever you need him to get, and he's an eclipse basically as a blocker. And so when you don't have him, you lose that aspect of it. So you got to do more downfield stuff. That's not always Stetson Bennett's game. So I think and you have a good receiver in Quentin Johnston who can get behind a defense, which is where Georgia is susceptible. They don't rush the passer all that well. Max Duggan can run. I can see this being like TCU always within arm's reach, but can't ever catch Georgia. And then, maybe it ends up being like a 20-point win after it's like a 10 to 13-point game the entire way. And Angie Ledbetter saying Darnell is playing. So we'll see if he's 100% and if he can stay on the field and, how much that helps them, because he's allowing them to stay in that 12 personnel and do whatever makes them really, really dangerous.
And remember, bettors don't need TCU to win the game outright. Bettors just need it to be a 10-point game or something along those lines.
And, Sue's question, does Georgia have anything left in the tank after playing Ohio State? Ohio State certainly gave Georgia the best run they've gotten of anyone all season. And I think Georgia probably emptied out their bag of tricks a little bit more than they were probably expecting to in that game. But, if both teams are out of bags, out of tricks from their bag, Georgia can do it more on talent than, I think TCU needs to have a little more razzle dazzle and pixie dust to make it happen. And, a couple weeks for Kirby Smart or a week and a half of Kirby Smart to look at TCU, I do wonder how much time Georgia spent looking at TCU versus Michigan over the course of December. Like, they have a trillion guys on staff as analysts and all that kind of stuff. So they've undoubtedly broken down all of these games well in advance of, even the semifinals. But you wonder how many guys they had looking at it from the Michigan side of things versus the TCU side of things. Cause I don't think anyone or many people were expecting TCU to be the team here. So, but nonetheless, you give Kirby Smart, you give Will Muschamp a couple weeks to scheme stuff up against you when you don't have a Marvin Harrison, when you don't have a CJ Stroud. That I think, I think ultimately that's where the game gets decided. But it's, if Washington is not 100% or whatever, that obviously, is something, a significant thing in TCU's favor.
TCU needs so much to go right, and all of their broken plays to mend themselves in a positive manner as they're happening. It's a lot of pressure. They have to play, obviously, the more perfect game than Georgia. Georgia has been able to play unperfect all season long and still out-talent people, out-physical them, just wear them down over the course of a game. TCU, you wonder how much more they have. They've got all of the fight that you need, but do they have the bodies anymore? Do they have just, they've got the will, but And it's asking a lot for what is their 14th, 15th game of the season, and I believe maybe like 10 or 11 of them have gone down to the wire. So they're seasoned, they're tough, they're hardened, but that's a lot, and that's a long season. And if they're there again, credit to them. I just think they're going to be just out of reach in Georgia. I don't see this being a final 5 minutes type of game.
No, I wouldn't think so. It feels like you're gonna, they're gonna go up and down the field a couple times in the first quarter, and everyone's gonna go, oh, here we go, and then and then the magic runs out at some point. That just kind of feels like where it's trending. I've seen a lot of kind of like 38-24 and 41-27 kind of picks in the chat. That feels about right. Something where it ends up being a couple scores and maybe TCU has the ball back down 10 in the fourth quarter, or with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's like, yeah, maybe, but I don't see them having the ball with a chance to tie or win in the final 5 minutes.
Kevin, you just threw this in the private chat about OSU Assistant Director of Strength and Conditioning Quinn Barham expected to be named the new Director of Football Strength and Conditioning at Coastal Carolina. He is the second strength guy to go leave this week. Nico Palazzetti left and is taking over his own thing. This coaching tree of Mickey Marotti continues to spread out.
Then that report is by way of Pete Thamel of ESPN.
It's interesting to me that you've got guys leaving. You've got people questioning the Ohio State strength and conditioning situation this year with all of the injuries. I don't see this as people abandoning the ship because it's they're going on to take rooms over of their own. So I wouldn't read into that. I'm not even going to throw out like, does this mean Mickey Marotti is leaving and everybody's just going their own way? I don't think that's necessarily the case either. It's just this is assistant guys go and get their own head jobs.
They're not lateral moves. They're moves up. So if guys are taking lateral steps and things of that nature, then you have to look at it and it's like, why is this going on? But even with that, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to diversify the places that you've worked in order to be able to take that next step forward. But both of these moves have been to run their own departments. So, this is certainly great news for Quinn. Good guy. Wish him the best at Coastal Carolina. Right near Myrtle Beach, so that's not terrible. If you can run, if you're good at strength and conditioning, I'm sure you can drop your resume off at the Woody.
Well, and as Sue says, I think some new blood in the strength and conditioning department is not a bad thing. I think that's always a good thing in any aspect of everything, really, to get some new thoughts, some fresh thoughts, because you can continue to do stuff year after year the same way, and the results don't really expand. They just are what they are. So sometimes you need new thoughts, new practices, new ideas to come in and expand the production in a different way and in a more productive way. So I agree. It's always good to bring fresh ideas and just till up the soil a bit and get those nutrients out there into some other kinds of plants. Tom, I'm a farmer.
Yeah.
I use farm analogies.
Very, very clearly, yes. You show me your thumb. Is it green? It feels like it's probably green. I
lost it in the combine.
R.I.P. thumb. This is definitely not a guys are getting forced out kind of thing or anything like that. If you're leaving to run your own department, then that's a significant step up in terms of your career. And I think maybe shows you that Mickey Marotti is still viewed as someone with a, who still knows what he's doing and is running a department that is, viewed as a, no pun intended, a strength in the business. So that it will be interesting to see. I am genuinely interested to see what comes out of the split film turf versus strength and conditioning versus general bloody-mindedness of the universe in terms of when they try and figure out what the pattern is with all the injuries this year, because it feels like it had to be something. I think it's more than just coincidence, but I genuinely wonder what they're going to change. Are they going to, are we going to come out in spring ball and they're going to say, we're doing more focusing more on flexibility this year, and besides the strength stuff, we're trying to focus more on flexibility and whatever. Like that feels like something that we could hear come spring, but I don't know that they know the answer yet.
More
Yeah,
yoga.
and I mean, it worked for Christian or for Marshawn Lattimore. And we can start to wrap up here, but this from AW Calvin Simpson Hunt, a day one starter. I don't think so. However, we should probably at one point down the road, the most likely day one starter of this recruiting class, like he would be up there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of the receivers can break in. Of course, that depends on what USC
But
does.
you're calling your black stripe draft pick right there, Simpson Hunt.
Ooh, well, we'll need to know who's enrolled first to have the best information, because I believe I won that black stripe draft. We don't have any proof of or any way to go back and see.
Mm-hmm.
And judging by Tom's reaction, I am correct in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were definitely top two, and there were all of two of us in there. So good job. Silver looks good on you, bud.
Good job. But I think he's a good bet. Not a safe bet, like the best bet, the relative one of the better bets to be a day one starter, because from what Mark Givler has seen out there, and again, check out BuckeyeHuddle.com. Mark Givler is out there in San Antonio right now, looking at the Ohio State commits, signees, and providing updates on our message board constantly, and throwing up some videos as well. So check that out. Become a member, see all of what Mark Givler's had to say. Alex Gleitman just dropped some stuff today or yesterday about an look at the offense and what it's looking like and where recruiting is as it stands in the portal issues as well. So you can find that there. Kevin, you got anything else before we go?
Just on an aside, I made it through one episode of the new Jack Ryan series of season 3. Yes, a lot of different Russians to deal with there, but and some low talking. And I hate low talking because I'm not going to watch a show with subtitles unless
you have to,
unless it's a foreign language show.
Yeah.
And I wanted to watch another episode, but it was 1:15 in the morning when I finished the last one, and I was like, I'm missing things. So next time we go live, when we go live on next Friday, I'll probably have binge watched the whole thing.
I now it's always subtitles because of Peaky Blinders. Everything is just now I just do subtitles all the time for all of the streaming stuff. And I'm with you, especially just too many Russians. Like, this is not an anti-Russia thing; it's an anti-character thing. It's just too many.
You must not be familiar with Tom Clancy series. It's all about the Russians.
Plus, there's some time jumps, and you got to keep up with a lot of people.
Oh my God! Is it worse than The Witcher?
Here's the thing about The Witcher, and I can see Tom's eyes rolling. I did not even realize there were time jumps. And then the first time I tried watching it. So imagine how confused this guy was. All right. I still haven't finished watching it. Tom, you got anything else?
I know who Jack Ryan is, but everything else you guys have said the last 5 minutes has just been meow, 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 meow. So yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, it's fine. Good luck with your TV.
Well, it was a continuation of our conversation last night walking out of the Schottenstein Center.
Some of us ducked out early.
Yes.
I don't want to brag, but it was me.
How was traffic?
I got out before traffic. I was very
Jeez.
Oh, don't worry. I was very efficient getting out of there. Clock hit 0, packed my stuff up, went out, met my wife and son, got in the car, was out, and the media parking's in a good spot, so we got out before traffic. I was home 45 minutes after I got in the car, maybe less. So
you didn't even get free fries.
I didn't, but no one got free fries, so it's still a nice game.
Actually, I did. With our $12 voucher for the media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, check out the All-American Bowl Saturday, 1 p.m. on NBC. Quarterback Lincoln Keenholz committed and signed with Ohio State. He's there. Calvin Simpson Hunt. Who else? Joshua Mickens, Malik Hartford, Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, and Luke Montgomery, all there. 3 on the West, 4 on the East. Check them out. I think that'll do it for us. I want to thank you all for joining us on a Friday. Have a happy rest of the weekend for yourselves, and we'll talk to you guys later.